Again, logical play out. If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island and I'm in charge, don't you think you'd see it?
Tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going.
So unless you've been living under a rock for the past 4 days, the Trump administration has officially done a 180 on the Epstein Files. Very suspiciously, might I add. Elon also hinted at the idea of starting a third party, one of the reasons being government transparency and the Trump administration officially dropping the ball on this issue. This has disappointed a lot of people, understandably. I suppose I'm disappointed too, but not altogether surprised. While Trump himself never really made an unambiguous commitment that he was going to, release the Epstein client list, he had a lot of people in the administration that seemed like hardliners on government transparency, like Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and Pam Bondi, who definitely gave much of the public the impression that the administration would deliver on these issues. So it's definitely justifiable that people are upset with Trump right now over this. If this were an ambiguous friendship that ended in blue balls, voters that voted specifically because of this issue would have definitely been led on, so to speak. People who voted for Trump because they thought that he was going to handle this Epstein issue, if that's the reason they went to the polls, then they got screwed over. That is fair to say. Now, some have come to the conclusion that this abrupt about face means that Trump himself is in the files, but I don't believe this to be the case. I don't think Trump would have associated himself this closely with the issue if he even suspected his own name was in there. But I'd say, in my humble opinion, for which there is no direct proof and is purely speculative, YouTube, there is almost certainly someone in the administration or a major donor whose name is in there, and probably some people in the intelligence community, so called. Epstein Island, suspicious environment. We're veering on to Bohemian Grove territory here. We're viewing on to Annika Lucas territory here. These are the skeletons that lie in the peat bog at the bottom of the swamp that people wanted drained all the way back in 2016. If you look back at these, historically speaking, over the course of American history, this case called The Finders, you'll notice there's always kind of been this weird intersection of powerful people in government and business, trafficking, occultism, and of course, blackmail. And it wouldn't be altogether very surprising if stuff like that were to, say, still be going on. What do I know, though? I'm just an ignorant Gen Z, terrible idiot young person who has no idea about the world because, I'm too busy on my iPhone or whatever. But anyway, some people, a lot of people, are still doing some eyes wide shut tier stuff. Personally, I've never believed we could just entirely vote these people away. I don't believe that. I've never believed that. I believe damage can be done to them. But even if the Epstein list came out, that wouldn't be all of them. There's this network is deep. You can tell that. You can tell that just from the way everyone's responding to this.
Mr. President, you released this statement and you want to know why it matters and who cares. Well, the victims care. We care. I'm maybe nobody, but I voted for you 3 times, and I've stated publicly that it's a hill that I'm willing to die on. Your Attorney General that you say is doing a fantastic job, she unsolicitedly and personally handed me a notebook with redacted, declassified files from court documents and said this was the first phase of what was going to be transparency from the administration on this issue. We didn't ask for that. We chose to believe that the administration was going to take the next steps in doing something about it. And now we're being told that nothing is going to be done, that it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. And it is still a hill worth dying on, because a society built on this level of deception and perversion is no society at all. And it's certainly not a republic, sir. So I respectfully ask you, please reconsider the position on this for what it's worth coming from me. I voted for you 3 times, but I'm not anybody. But I'm asking you, sir, truth matters. There's a woman in jail because somebody's guilty. There's a man who's mysteriously dead that we know was guilty. Who else was involved? That's all we're asking for. It's what we want to know. And somebody else was involved, and somebody knows who it was. So we're asking you, pleading with you, please, sir. And God bless you, Mr. President. Let's do the right thing.
Yeah, the MSM narrative around this subject is really cracking. The idea that there's nothing to this issue is laughable. People both left and right know that. It's almost like a Luigi Mangione moment, in the sense that you can see clear antipathy and dissatisfaction on the part of the general public toward elites that sort of transcends left-right categories in a in a populist way. I think liberals are obviously less aware, less self-aware generally, but then also less aware of this issue. But there are some people who have left-wing tendencies who may have, under other circumstances never voted for Trump, who did vote for Trump this time, who expected him to deliver on this issue, and they feel disappointed. I do think people like that are worth acknowledging. But anyway, it's kind of just a general rule of human society that intergenerationally powerful people that may or may not worship dark, shadowy forces because they're nihilists and solipsists, because their brains have been so overloaded with experiences they can't even relate to your average person anymore. They can't even relate to the average person. They can't relate to humanity because they've had all these experiences. If you are intergenerationally uber wealthy and you have experienced pretty much all the world has to offer by the age of 16, of course, regular worldly pleasures will just bore you. So you escalate to more and more extreme forms of entertainment. It's like how your average person today is having their brains fried by porn and they become perverts, but these people have the money to do all that and more in real life and never get caught because they're shadowy nobility people, eyes wide shut people. And no, we can't get rid of these people that easily with a single election cycle. And I don't know who Elon thinks he's fooling with this third party stuff, because he's also a billionaire and tons of people were already suspicious that he's one of them himself. I do think that electoral politics is still substantially real despite this and meaningful. And what I mean by that is there's still a qualitative difference between this Trump presidency and a hypothetical Kamala presidency, despite the Trump administration's failure on this issue of the Epstein Files. I get the dissatisfaction that some people may feel at this, though there are real and meaningful differences that we've seen in the economy and immigration since Trump took office. So I don't agree with the idea that the uniparty is just unshakably in power, if you know what I mean. There's clearly a stakes to American politics. People had things to lose if Trump got into office, and Trumpism, policy-wise, is the opposite of globalism. These eyes wide shut people, whoever they are almost certainly globalists pushing a liberal democratic humanist agenda as a way to consolidate power over the entire planet. This is, generally speaking, the ideology of the most powerful people in business and government in the West today. Any politician that advances an agenda which counters this global planning strategy of theirs is moving moving society in the right direction, even if only incrementally, in my opinion. Now, if that's not enough for you, I get it, but personally, I stopped believing in liberal democracy when I was pretty young, and I've never been under the illusion that a single election cycle could solve everything. Overall, in my opinion, we're still experiencing civilizational decline, and it's arguable whether or not the democratic process itself is even equipped to respond to such a problem in like the most fundamental sense. I really I haven't believed in a lot of commonly held assumptions about American government and the West, generally speaking, for quite some time now. So, excuse my lack of surprise at current developments. But many of the premises that modern liberal democracy even understands itself to be founded on are untrue. The idea that the average American can think critically enough to solve problems as large as the ones we're confronted with this whole Epstein client list situation is obviously untrue. The reality of what our democracy has become, the managerial state, speaks against the idea that the democratic process could ever solve a problem like whatever is behind Epstein Island. In Western countries, selfish individuals use liberal democratic modes of government to make the state an executive organ of their own business interests through paying for elections, buying influence in the mass media, controlling the opinions of voters and consumers. As a historical rule, revolutionary change only occurs when the elites are no longer able to manage the infrastructure of the civilization itself, and obviously we haven't encountered a situation like that yet. There's no quick fix solution to Epstein's Island, and I think we all knew that. So these are my specific opinions on the situation. On the one hand, it's disappointing, and I get that. On the other hand, I can't see a compelling case that the populist right still hasn't made some progress policy wise regarding the Trump administration so far, even if this is a significant setback in the quest for truth and justice and establishing righteousness in the West.
How many of you are satisfied? You can clap. Satisfied with the results of the Epstein investigation? Clap. Okay, I told you to clap. You guys aren't listening. I'm not going to grade you on a curve. So I was going to get to that. How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation?
Silver lining of this situation is the more noise people make, the more pressure is put on the administration. And I will say, compared to others, I think this is an adequate assessment. It is more responsive to its base than other administrations, generally speaking. So the more noise people make about this situation, the better. Something may come out of it, not a guarantee, not something I ever expected from the beginning, but not implausible either. Anyway, that's it for this video. Sorry, I got it out kind of late. Please like, share, subscribe, etc. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. And red channels will, of course, catch you in the next one.